Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 horror movies that I highly recommend. And with that, let's get to the list. Channel Zero is a 2016 horror anthology series created by Nick Antosca, who served as writer, showrunner, and producer. Each season is based on a popular creepypasta story, including Candle Cove, No End House, Butcher Block, and The Dream Door.
Everything that's happening now, everything that happened in '88 is back. What do you want?
So each season of this is really well done. It's creepy, disturbing, it's just a lot of fun. But my favorite is probably the first season, Candle Cove. There's just something about it that really gets to me. It's about these group of adults who remember as kids watching this creepy TV show. And it's just nightmare fuel. The puppetry and all the different things in the show, it's really well done because it really reminded me of stuff that I actually watched as a kid, especially stuff from the late 70s and early 80s. But like I said, each season is worth watching. They're all really well done. They go in a lot of different directions. And I just think this series is a truly overlooked gem and one that if you've never seen, you need to do yourself a favor and check it out.
So delicious.
Appendage is a 2023 drama horror movie. Directed by Anna Zlikovic, it stars Emily Hampshire, Hadley Robinson, and Kausar Mohammed. A young fashion designer's life spirals as her darkest inner thoughts manifest into something gruesome that won't stop growing.
This is gonna sound crazy. But have you ever seen anything like this before?
No.
This is a pretty wild little movie. It came out last year, and I know I really enjoy it, but I love the 1980s, a little bit campy stuff that has to do with body horror, you know, the Frank Henenlotter type of stuff. I enjoy that, but not everybody does, and I get it. So this just may not be for you. But I think if you enjoy Cronenberg and, like I said, Henenlotter and things that have to do with body horror, but they use it as kind of a metaphor and are twisted and uncomfortable and weird, but also have a little bit of black, dark humor to them, then I think this might be one you'd enjoy. But I think it's well written, well directed, the cast do a great job, and it's really just an interesting movie that has very much flown under the radar. So if that sounds like something you might be into, then definitely, by all means, check this one out.
Don't you love me anymore?
1408. 1408 is a 2007 psychological horror movie. Directed by Mikkel Hafstrom, it's based on Stephen King's 1999 short story of the same name, and stars John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. An author specializing in debunking paranormal occurrences checks into the fabled room 1408 in the Dolphin Hotel in New York City, and soon confronts genuine terror.
First victims to Kevin O'Malley.
Cut his own throat.
Do not stay in that room.
I've been a big fan of this movie ever since I saw it on the first day it came out in theaters. I was visiting family down in San Diego, and I went to see whatever the newest horror movie was, and it was this. I went with my cousins, and I just loved it. I had a blast with it then, and every time I've rewatched it since, I'm still a fan of it. It's creepy, and it's a really well done concept because it all takes place just in this one room, and pretty much John Cusack is the only person on screen for, I'd say, 90% of the movie, and yet it doesn't feel that way. It's always fun, it's always interesting, it's always creepy, things are constantly happening, it keeps you guessing the entire runtime, and the visuals will stick with you. It gets really moody, atmospheric, and definitely spooky. So if it's been a while, or if you've never seen this, I think you need to definitely add it to your list.
She's gonna die.
The Taking of Deborah Logan is a 2014 supernatural horror movie. Directed by Adam Robitel in his directorial debut, it stars Jill Larson, Anne Ramsey, and Michelle Ng. An elderly woman battling with Alzheimer's disease agrees to let a film crew document her condition, but they discover something far more sinister is going on.
You really gave us all quite a fright with your late night gardening.
So I think this movie is genuinely disturbing, very creepy, and for the right audience will scare the living hell out of you. Because some of the imagery, the way this is shot, the directions that it takes, it's another movie that really keeps you off kilter and never quite knowing what's going to happen next. Because every time it seems like you've got a beat on what this movie's going to do and the directions that it's going to take it, it just seems to continually shift and keeps you guessing. The cast is also amazing in this. They feel real and genuine, and so it makes you care even more about what happens. And it's really a shame that this movie hasn't gotten more love over the years, because I really do think it's one of the best hidden gems out there. So if you're looking for a dark and disturbing, genuinely haunting movie, this is one you should absolutely add to your list.
Never leave your loved ones alone. You should know that by now.
Brimstone is a 2016 psychological horror movie. Directed by Martin Koolhoven, it stars Dakota Fanning, Guy Pearce, and Kit Harington. A frontier woman turns fugitive when she is wrongly accused of a crime she didn't commit, and is now hunted by a vengeful preacher.
Jesus is the shepherd who protects you from those wolves. And I am his dog. The sheepdog that get the lambs back on track when they stray off the path.
Holy fuck, guys, this movie is so good. I talked about it at the beginning of the year, but I was like, you know what? That wasn't enough, because as good as this movie is, it needs to be recommended again. So I threw it on this list because I still don't think enough people have seen this. Because if you like movies that make you uncomfortable, that are disturbing and pitch black dark, then this is definitely one you need to see. It's also some of the best performances I've ever seen from Guy Pearce as well as Dakota Fanning, who I'm both a fan of, but this I honestly think is the best I've seen them. But by no means is this a fun movie. It is a movie that is dour, it is gloomy, it feels upsetting. The entire movie feels bleak and just void of anything remotely happy. But even though I'm not saying it's fun, it is still an incredibly well put together movie. It's well directed, it's well written. The cast is all incredible. The prop department, the sets, I mean, it all feels very genuine, very believable, and so it just pulls you in and makes you care about everything even more. And I think it's a real shame that this movie just is absolutely unknown. But I do understand why. It's because, like I said, this isn't a fun watch, so it's not for everyone. I mean, this isn't a movie to go in and be entertained. You're probably gonna come away with this not feeling happy and probably feeling disturbed. But I'm warning you ahead of time, that's what you're in for. But if you're someone that can appreciate movies like Martyrs or The House That Jack Built, maybe not quite to that extreme, but definitely in the same ballpark, then I think you should absolutely check this one out.
Hello? Who am I speaking with?
Zodiac is a 2007 mystery crime thriller. Directed by David Fincher, it's based on the nonfiction books by Robert Graysmith and stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Ruffalo, and Robert Downey Jr. Between 1968 and 1983, a San Francisco cartoonist becomes an amateur detective obsessed with tracking down the serial killer known as the Zodiac.
Dear editor, this is the murderer of the two teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl on the 4th of July.
I want you to print this cipher on the front page of your paper.
This one's a little different than most of the movies I talk about, because I won't say this is a horror movie. This is much more in the thriller camp. But it deals with real world horror, which is why I'm including it here, because it talks about the serial killer, the Zodiac. And I mean, if a serial killer in real life is not horrific, I don't know what is. And as far as a real life serial killer, this is probably the best movie we've ever seen about one. I mean, David Fincher is just a master filmmaker. The way his movies look, everything just has this stylish yet realistic, gritty vibe. But you have to be in the right headspace for this because it very much is a slow burn. And it's also a movie that doesn't give you a ton of answers because the real world serial killer was never caught. But I think that's part of what is so special about this movie is because it is open-ended like it is, it leads you into either discovering more about the situation or coming up with your own conclusions from what they give you. Because for the most part, this movie is pretty true to the actual case. But the cast is amazing in this. They all give really powerful, interesting performances. So if you're a fan of true crime and real world horror like I am, I think this is one you should definitely see.
我找到你了。
The Sadness is a 2021 Taiwanese horror movie, written and directed by Rob Jabez in his feature film debut. It stars Bharat Zhu and Regina, a young couple trying to reunite amid a city ravaged by a plague that turns its victims into deranged, bloodthirsty sadists.
怎样？
The best way to describe this movie is bloody. It is extremely gory, extremely bloody, and very, very deranged and depraved. It shows pretty much the worst that one person can do to another. I mean, if you can think of it, they probably do it on some level in this movie. It's so bloody and so gory that after a few minutes of watching this, you kind of become desensitized to it, and it's almost not even as shocking as you would think it would be. Because pretty much from beginning to end, it's just one giant bloodbath. But if you're a fan of practical special effects and body horror, it doesn't get much better than this. Because this is some of the best practical gore effects we've seen in quite a while. It's basically like Terrifier levels of violence and gore, but that just pretty much goes on the entire movie. And you will have to read subtitles because it's not in English, but there's not a ton of dialogue to this, so it's not very much reading. Most of this movie is following these characters running through the city, trying to get away from people that have lost their minds. They're not really zombies, they're just people that have basically lost their minds and are just becoming homicidal lunatics. It's loosely inspired from the graphic novel The Cross, so if you're familiar with that, you'll kind of get an idea of the things and what this movie deals with. But I think for what it is, it's really well done. It won't be for everyone, that's for sure. But for the right audience, I think this is a great watch. May is a 2002 psychological horror movie, written and directed by Lucky McKee in his directorial debut. It stars Angela Bettis, Jeremy Sisto, Anna Faris, and James Duval. A socially awkward veterinary assistant with an obsession for perfection descends into depravity after developing a crush on a boy with perfect hands.
Jesus, what are you doing?
Relaxing.
Doesn't it hurt? Ow! You crazy bitch!
This is a very twisted, demented, macabre movie, but it has a dark kind of sense of humor to it. Even though the things that it deals with and directions that it goes are very creepy and unnerving, there's a humor about it. But Angela Bettis is phenomenal in this. She really is the reason to see this because she's so quirky, so strange, so demented. You can't help it as a black-hearted horror fan enjoying the character that she is. It's a strange one, but a good time, one that I think is a lot of fun and definitely worth checking out.
Death is a disease. There's a cure.
The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is a 2023 sci-fi horror movie, written and directed by Bomani J. Story in his directorial debut. It stars Leah DeLeon Hayes, Denzel Whitaker, and Chad Coleman. Vicaria is a brilliant teenager who believes that death is a disease that can be cured. And after the brutal murder of her brother, she embarks on a dangerous journey to bring him back to life.
Death is a disease. It infected my brother Chris. My hypothesis, there's a cure.
This movie is so good. It's one of my top movies from last year. I talked about it a number of times on this channel. And it's really a shame, I think, because of the name. It's such a weird name and doesn't make you think it's going to be the kind of movie that it is. I think the name has a lot to do with why this movie didn't get more attention. But it is such a powerful, moving, interesting, well put together movie. The cast is fantastic, and even though you may not recognize the names, I promise you they all give great performances here. And it's dark and very gritty and uncomfortable, and it deals with some really disturbing, uncomfortable issues, things to do with gun violence from gangs and drugs and just that whole world that unfortunately continues to be a real problem in our urban neighborhoods across this country. And so it takes that and mixes it with kind of this Frankenstein story. And I'm telling you, it's such an interesting idea that's really well executed. Because to me, there's nothing better than a horror movie that has something to say, says it well and poignant, but yet doesn't forget it's a horror movie and can still be disturbing, creepy, uncomfortable, all the things you want from a horror movie. I think this is a special little gem that's definitely worth checking out. Mayhem is a 2017 action comedy horror movie. Directed by Joe Lynch, it stars Steven Yeun, Samara Weaving, and Steve Brand. A virus spreads through an office complex, causing white-collar workers to act out their worst impulses.
We're witnessing a model citizen here, transformed into a brutal, bloodthirsty, killing machine.
So like always, I try to end these lists with something that I think is fun, something that's entertaining, something that you can relax to and just have a good time with. And this is one of my favorite movies to fit into that category because it's exciting, it's full of action, it's intense, but none of it's meant to be taken overly serious. It's just a good time and it knows what it is. Joe Lynch, I think, is one of the best filmmakers at making that type of horror. Because it still gets violent, it still gets gruesome and gory, but it's having a good time doing it. On top of that, I'm a big fan of both Samara Weaving and Steven Yeun. They're both just fantastic. They both just have so much charisma in anything that they're in. And when you put the two of them together, just causing mayhem, hence the title of the movie, it's just a blast. So if we're talking about a horror movie to just relax and kick your feet up to, I think this is a perfect pick for this Saturday night. So do yourself a favor this weekend, pick one of the movies off of this list, grab your popcorn and your candy, and enjoy! And I want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or you can become a channel member and help support the channel that way by clicking on the join button down there. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about 10 more horror movies that I highly recommend. And I'll see you guys next time.